What is up, everybody? Excited to be doing another episode of Legends Look Back, this time without my good buddy Freddie, who, hey, sometimes life happens and work sidelined him for tonight, but we've got a excellent guest filling in on his behalf, as well as our producer for the month, Emma. And this particular question, honestly, guys, was for Freddie. So, Freddie, wherever you are, this was for you in spirit. In the Star Wars Insider most recent edition, number 203, I've got the fun subscriber cover here with Baby Yoda looking up at something. Ahsoka, I think. Anyway, and there is a piece written by, well, what's his name? On Twitter, he's Jawa James. Awesome guy. Great guy. He did this beautiful piece about traveling to Star Wars filming locations across California. You guys read Star Wars Insider?
Unfortunately, no. I would love to, but it's just something I've never gotten into.
I read it occasionally, mostly for the High Republic short stories, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that has, I think, sucked a lot of us back in recently. Is there for a couple of years they weren't doing any original fiction. It's one of the fun things that they have done well is they've had these short stories. In fact, they've just been some of them reprinted in this collectible hardback, the first volume that we're going to read and we're going to talk about in August here on the show, the Star Wars Insider Fiction Collection, Volume 1. Which infamously has both canon and legends stories in it. But sometimes I'll actually read the pieces that are not fiction, and this one is really fun. James goes to all these different locations across California, and he'll have a photograph of a shot from the films, and then he will take a photo of him in the exact spot. And Freddie, who lives in California, I wanted to know how many of these places has he ever been to, which I've got to say, like, it feels good to be able to travel again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You guys done any big adventures since you've been vaccinated?
Not yet. No, I'm gonna go to Bar Harbor next weekend or this weekend. Yeah, this weekend's the 4th. Yeah, it's crazy time.
You say Bar Harbor? I'm pretty sure it's only to be pronounced
Bahaba.
Bahama. Yeah, that's right. It is like my favorite place in the world. It is gorgeous. I'm boarding a flight tomorrow morning to go to Arkansas for a work thing, and I have not packed any of my clothes yet, but I have, however, packed all my Star Wars books that I'm going to be
It's
reading
the
on
most
this
important
trip.
thing on a trip. Yeah.
But
That's the one thing you can't forget besides underwear and socks. Star Wars reading material.
That's right. I loaded everything onto my iPad. I'm going to download first thing in the morning the episode of Bad Batch, and I'm going to, just probably watch it as soon as the plane takes off. I'm excited about that. But it had me wondering if you could go to one filming location in the Star Wars galaxy, one place. Obviously, it can't just be a totally CGI place. Like, you can't say Mustafar, right? That doesn't work, right? If you could go to one actual place that was filmed in a real life location from the entire Star Wars galaxy, what would it be? I think my answer is Italy. The places where they filmed some of the Naboo sequences.
Yeah,
That's a
Attack
good
of the
one.
Clones, Phantom Menace. Because we've got family that lives nearby. There's a castle in Naples, that I know for a fact that my wife's uncle has been to. Because I'm like, that's Star Wars, like the Leonardo da Vinci meme. That's me whenever I see him there. Emma, do you have like a one Star Wars dream location you'd want to visit?
Oh yeah, definitely Skellig Michael. Honestly, this is kind of tough because I have a huge fear of birds, so kind of an interesting choice for me. But being such a big Rey fan, I think I've got to go there, right?
Well, at least there's no porgs. It's just actual puffins, right?
Yeah. Part of me would kind of rather there be porgs. At least I know that they're kind of cute. Birds kind of terrify me. But you know what? I would suck it up to be able to go to the spot where Rey hands Luke the lightsaber. I would do it just for that. I'd overcome my fears.
Yeah, man, I've got to admit, it's definitely a place I'd like to go to, even though I'm a Legends guy. It's canon, but it is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, what about you, Charles?
Part of me wants to say like the homestead in Tunisia would be cool, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna say the exact opposite. I want to go to Norway. I want to go to Echo Base. I just want to
Ooh.
walk around in that blizzard landscape. I
Go
just want to
find a
get
wampa.
lost, just like Luke. Yeah.
let's hope that nobody has to keep you warm. because I've heard that it smells bad. Guess how many locations there are across California and Arizona that James ended up going to, filming locations that were actually used in the original trilogy and +1 for The Mandalorian as well.
Oh.
You want to take a wild guess? There's way more than I realized.
45.
Okay, well, no, way less than that.
Okay.
I'm going to say a dozen.
Yeah, you're close. I think 16 is the number here.
Oh, wow.
16.
The most recent one would have been Tython at Rocky Peak Park. Tython from The Mandalorian was filmed there. And so that's like the most Legends-y out of all the places here, for sure. Because Tython, of course, in a number of Legends works, including the Dawn of the Jedi series. So that one might be up on my list. I've made separately 4 or 5 different plans to go visit Freddie in California since he and I started Legends Look Back. And so far, I have done none of them. So one of these days, I'm going to do it. So everybody let us know in the Discord, let us know in the YouTube chat. What is your ideal Star Wars location that you would want to go visit? And, most importantly, what would you read on the way there? And so without further ado, while we wait for your incredible answers, let's kick it off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends Look Back. We are proudly part of the Utini Podcast Network. Say that 5 times fast. We are a Star Wars books podcast for the #1 fans of Pablo Hidalgo's Beast Wars sketches on Twitter, where we talk about all things Star Wars Legends, celebrating our rich EU history, as well as diving into lesser-known Star Wars classics. And woo, are we diving in deep today. I'm your host, Jared Mace, and I'm not joined by my good friend, Freddie C, with the coolest Star Wars hat in the galaxy. F's in the chat for Freddie. He's still alive. Don't worry. He's still alive. Hopefully, if he can survive that California traffic. But you know who I am joined by, filling in as our producer this week, one of the great faces of Utini's YouTube channel, Emma Park. How are you, Emma?
Hello, I am well. Very excited to be here tonight and chat some Legends. I was just commenting last night on the Cosmic Force that I'm definitely more known for my canon side, especially when we're picking Art of the Week. But I did select a Legends art yesterday from Star Wars number 29 from the 1977 series because we talked about Valence last week, so I had to do it.
Yeah, you chose the image where Valence's severed hand grips Vader's ankle. That was so good. I was so proud of you, Emma. Way to go. So everybody give Emma a round of applause, whether it's wherever you are. If you're driving your car, keep both hands on the wheel.
Yes.
If you're cooking dinner, don't burn the chicken. You know who else is not burning any chicken this week? The greatest doctor in the galaxy since Evazan himself, Charles Henkel. How are you, Charles?
Wow. Well, first of all, I only have the death sentence in 11 systems. And
knew you were going to say that.
Shots fired at Corey, but that's okay. He's not here right now. I don't see him in the chat, so he didn't hear that. I'm doing very well. I'm stoked to be here. I think, was I on the first roundtable that we ever tried for this show? Wasn't it Kenobi? Didn't we do that like way earlier? I don't even know if it was
either episode. It was either you or Eric. Eric came on early too. I know that after your episode, we were like, all right, yeah, we got to figure out a better way to do roundtables. Because it was still,
I assumed
learning.
I offended somebody, and now the truth comes out. It was Freddie, because I'm back when Freddie's gone. So
no. We were like, oh, yeah, we'll just kind of like, talk through the plot points of the book, and that'll be a great way to do it. And we're like, no, we actually need some very specific questions to help us get all the way through, which we have learned takes a lot of time. Which, by the way, guys, I finished Shatterpoint today, and oh my gosh, was that amazing. And I can't wait for us to do our Shatterpoint roundtable coming up in just a couple of weeks here on the show. Before we go any further, though, I've got to clear the air here with Charles. Charles discovered a shared passion this week in the Utini Slack that we got to put out on the internet for the whole world to hear, to immortalize. You are, or were, a massive Captain Underpants fan growing up.
Oh, yeah. Let's definitely talk about this. All right. Well, first of all, this is weird. This is weird to put out there. But second of all, this is the second reference to underwear in the first 15 minutes of this
Welcome
podcast.
to Legends
So
Look
that's
Back.
even More strange. But yes, so Jared and I apparently both were big Captain Underpants fans, and both 20 years before we knew each other, made our own spin-off comics. Mine was Captain Boxers, which is not at all copyright infringement. Okay, they're totally different undergarments. I don't know what yours was, Jared, but it's a very odd connection.
It is I think Dave Pilkey has actually recently been canceled, or at least like one of his properties was culturally insensitive and was canceled. One thing those books were not trying to be was politically correct. That's for sure. My spin-off comics originated with the Pizza Men. There were 5 of them. P-I. You see where this is going. Z1 and Z2. All right. And but then there was a spin-off from that called Janitor Man. How did I get from Pizza Men to Janitor Man? It's a shared universe. I remember that much. I even commissioned an artist at 12 years old. I paid a buddy like $20 to do concept designs for me because I was a terrible artist.
Wow.
It's a whole thing. I have no idea where all those are. One of these days, there'll be a Patreon reward.
Dude, I have mine. I will throw them in the next time I visit my parents. They're in a plastic blue suitcase because I took myself very seriously at that age.
That's amazing. I've got them. I don't know. I have no idea what has happened, but I am going back to my hometown, so I could always, hang out in the storage unit in the 100-degree Arkansas heat looking for these things. Yeah, that's not going to happen. You know what is going to happen, though, is we're going to show off our recent acquisitions. And that is one of the fun things we like to do here on Legends Look Back is talk about the new stuff we got. And unfortunately, the thing that I was really excited about showing off has not yet arrived, but it has shipped, which is exciting. 3 out of my 4 Legends Black series have shipped. Jackson Kyrkanos from the Crimson Empire, which I recently read and really dug. So I'm excited about displaying that. And then my Luke, my big gun sleeveless Luke has not shipped yet. And there's one other I'm forgetting. It's not Naked Palps. He didn't get an action figure yet, sadly. What am I forgetting?
That's the operative word there.
Anyway, 3 out of my 4 have shipped. Hopefully next episode I can show them off. What I do have, though, is kind of a funny coincidence. I'm wondering, Emma, first, though, if you're going to show off the same thing that I'm about to show off. What do you have here, Emma, to show off recent acquisitions? You got anything new for Thracken's thrift store?
Regrettably, I do not. And I know this is very off-brand for me because, I'm very known for being a collector. But you know what? I just bought a new computer. I'm trying to save money. And other than the Rising Storm, which came, that was one thing. But other than that, surprisingly, nothing from me.
Well, that's what I thought you were going to say. Was the Rising Storm. Charles, did you get a physical copy of this, or are you just going with your free kickback that you guys get over there at the Living Force?
No, I do have a physical copy of the Rising Storm. I have the Target exclusive.
I love that
with all the beautiful Jedi portraits there. And I do have the out of print edition that will come soon as well. So
I went through an existential crisis on whether or not I should order that. And here's why. Books A Million, I ordered the signed copy, pre-ordered it, the day it was announced, because I didn't have Cavan's autograph yet. I'm collecting all the Star Wars author autographs and doing pretty good on that collection. Didn't have him yet. Really love him. Was excited to have his. So I ordered it before they ever announced the out-of-print edition. Once they did announce the out-of-print edition, I frantically tried to cancel my Books A Million pre-order, and they would not let me cancel. You know what they did do, however, is ship me not one, but for the price of one, they shipped me 2 signed copies. I can't even get these in the frame. 2 signed copies of The Rising Storm. And so thankfully, I've got a friend up here in Massachusetts who back in January, just recently got into Star Wars books for the first time in her life with Light of the Jedi. She has since read like 20. She's read the entire Timothy Zahn catalog, which is awesome. And so I'm going to give her one of these copies tomorrow. No giveaway, not doing one of those here in the chat. It's already claimed. But that does bring me up, if we count the free copy that they sent me, the one that I bought but tried to cancel, the out of print that I ordered, and the Target exclusive, that puts me up. Oh, and I've got the ebook and the audiobook.
Oh my word.
So many
Wow.
copies of this book.
The rising
And-
storms.
Yeah, that's right. The rising wave that's going to eclipse me of debt, just financial stress. You know what else is going to put me into debt? Some of these newly announced Legends books that are coming up on the horizon. Emma, why don't you start us off here and tell us about some of the things to be on the lookout for in the Legends world?
Sure, yeah. So we have a new Marvel Legends Epic collection announced, Legacy Volume 4, which collects Legacy Volume 2, which is issues number 1 through 18, featuring, now correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, Anya Solo. And it's due out March 2022.
All right, I kind of punked you with that one. Did you notice just how ridiculous the terminology was with this?
Yes, I stumbled over it quite a bit.
So this is a Marvel Legends Epic collection, not to be confused with the new Del Rey Essential Legends collections. Those are prose books. These are comics, right?
Okay, I think that's where I got confused.
But it's reprinting a Dark Horse comic, which was Legacy. But this is not Legacy Volume 1 featuring Cade Skywalker. It's Legacy Volume 2. But for all of the Cade Skywalker Legacy Volume 1 comics have already been released as Marvel Legends Epic Collections Legacy Volumes 1 through 3. So Legacy Volume 2 is being released as Legacy Volume 4. Are you with me?
No.
Only partially.
Anyway, I'm actually really excited about this. This is a vastly underrated Legends comic series. It's shorter than Legacy Volume 1. It's very different. There's a murder droid. There's
Oh, I like
an
murder
IG.
droids.
There's an IG droid with like a big bandolier across his belt, and he's got, I forget his name. He's got, dual wielding pistols, and the fan theory is that he's actually C-3PO reprogrammed into an IG unit 100 plus years after Return of the Jedi. Anyway, it's amazing. I'm excited for this. And it is really good. You should definitely check it out. You can find your pre-orders through the Uchini affiliate links. If you click on our new release schedule, upcoming releases, I'm sure we'll have it on there soon if it's not already. Secondly, coming up is another Legends comic. This one, however, is not a Marvel Legends Epic Collection. This is the hardcover omnibus of Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah, Emma's going to throw this one up on the screen here for us. This is the one we talked about back when we did the 3-part roundtable plus one more with the interview with John Jackson Miller when we did all 50 plus issues of the Knights of the Old Republic comic series. We hyped it back then in January. You can order them. There's still people frantically in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. We've been chatting all day about like which version are you going to get and where are you going to get it and what price are you going to pay and who gets the most money when you buy it from which source. Anyway, all 1,344 pages of this thing comes out next week, July 7th. Charles, can you imagine having 1,344 pages of a Star Wars story in one volume?
Well, I can now. And I'll tell you, I've never read a single page of that, but just this cover alone that we're showing everybody, I want that on my shelf.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned the cover because there's been some controversy. Did you hear about this?
Uh-oh. No, I don't know the controversy.
So I don't know if it's controversy, but like I'm peeved in that mildly peeved. It doesn't actually matter because I'm a collector and only the spine is really going to be what's seen on my shelf for the most part. And I'm going to love having this thing. And I'm really excited to spend money on it. However, this cover is by an artist named, all right, one is the Ching cover, one is the Weaver cover. Emma, you've got these in
Yeah, so the
Which
one I'm
one is
showing
this?
right now is the Weaver cover.
Weaver. All right, this one is not changed. This is the exact product of what you're going to get, which is not the one that I ordered. Emma, show the one that I ordered. The one that I ordered is the Ching cover. Brian Ching is the name of the artist. However, they have changed the art. This is no longer the Ching art that's going to be featured on the cover of the book that I bought. The one that they put up is probably better, but it's not the one that I thought I was buying. Can you imagine dropping $100 on a book and then before, like a week before it gets to you, they say, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's gonna have a different cover." It's kind of wild,
no,
isn't it?
that's
That's
frustrating.
fair.
Yeah.
Do you know what the new art is?
Yes, we don't have it in OBS, but it is, however, in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. So click through if you want to chat about that more with us. There's some, some spicy takes there. Like, hear me out. I'm super pumped for this. Either way, it's actually kind of thrilling to, have them throw me a curveball. You place a pre-order 6 months in advance, 7 months in advance, and then the week before they change it up. It's kind of like, all right, keep me on my toes, especially when we're talking about like ancient Star Wars titles. These are old. They've been around for a while. It's kind of fun to have some new additions. And one other thing in the Legends Lookout segment here, one more new hardcover Marvel Omnibus, much like we've just talked about with the KOTOR Omnibus, is the Empire Volume 1 Omnibus. This also releases in March of 2022 alongside the Marvel Legends Epic Collection Legacy Volume 4, Collecting Legacy Volume 2. Remember? All right, this one is Empire Volume 1, Collecting. You ready for this? Star Wars Republic, 78 through 80. Star Wars Purge, number 1. Star Wars Purge Seconds to Die, number 1. Star Wars Purge The Hidden Blade, number 1. Star Wars Purge Tyrant's Fist, 1 and 2. Star Wars Darth Vader and the Lost Command, 1 through 5. Star Wars Dark Times, 1 through 17. Dark Times Blue Harvest, 0. Dark Times Out of the Wilderness, 1 through 5. Darth Vader and the Ghost Prison, 1 through 5. I've read very few of those, so I'm very excited to get my hands on this. Woo!
That was quite a mouthful.
Yeah, and Emma, tell the folks where they can pre-order these bad boys.
Oh yeah, you know where, utini.com. And you can search up the book that you want, any book. It doesn't even have to be these. You can search up your book, look at their book profile page. You've got an Amazon link. I think we've got Books A Million, and I'm going to stop talking before I say something that we don't have yet. But there's a bunch of links there. Just click on one.
With these, they're actually solicited more through comic shops than traditional bookstores.
Oh,
so I think we probably just have an Amazon link for these. However, we do still have a live Amazon link for the Knights of the Old Republic Omnibus, which is $13 off cover price. Look at that. And it's a pretty substantial buy, so we'll get at UTD like a good kickback on that. So you really want to do us a favor. Yeah, you can get yourself 1,344 pages of Old Republic content. So before we go any further into that rabbit hole, we are going to go in a very different, very, very old, very Legendsy rabbit hole. In fact, it's so Legendsy that even in Legends, it's Legends. It's not even really all that canonical. We're going to talk about the Disney Plus Vintage Collection featuring the Boba Fett cartoon, the Ewok movies, the Ewok cartoon, the Droids cartoon, and, you know it, Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. This is something that was buried in the Disney vault for years. Disney released some classic, legendary Star Wars shows and movies, and we are going to break it all down. Before we do, we are going to show you the beautiful, amazing, legendary Legends Look Back fanny pack in our ad break. So we're going to take a little break. You can look at some of the new products we've got available on the site, and we will be back with the Disney Plus Vintage Collection. We got the Legends Look Back. I'm sorry. Oh, are we live? Okay. Yeah. Hey, you know what's awesome? Despite the fact that some of this content wasn't my favorite, the theme songs were fire, weren't they?
It's true. It's true. Not the Ewok season 2, though. They ruined it.
Yeah, well, Go ahead, Charles.
Droids was like... I felt like I don't know. It could have been Elton John. I don't know who sang that song, but I was like, I heard it once and I was like, the rest of the day, I was like, in trouble again. Like I was just humming it. I was singing it around the house. It's fantastic.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. Out of the 3 theme songs, right? We got the Droids theme song In Trouble Again. And then there was the Ewoks, as you're referencing, Emma, there was an Ewok season 1 theme song, and they changed it for season 2. They changed it. All right, rank them. Theme songs. I'm going to put, as Charles said, I'm going to put that Droids theme song as number 1. How about you, Emma?
Agreed. Yeah. Droids number 1, Ewok season 1, number 2, Ewok season 2 last, because the first season was really good and they ruined it with the second season.
All right, I think that's the definitive list. I don't think there's any way around that. I will say, even if you after listening to us talk about these tonight, maybe not convinced that you want to go and binge all of this, you could, and I have. But I would at least encourage everybody to listen to these theme songs. It'll take 2-3 minutes of your life, and it will be worth it because they'll be stuck in your head. It's like a gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? It just stays in there.
It's true. Yeah, they're on YouTube. Look them up. You're going to have one of them stuck in your head. I don't know which one. Probably the Droids one. That one's just really catchy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the thing about the theme song, did you know that it was actually recorded by one of the guys who was in The Police? I don't mean
really?
That makes so much sense.
Law enforcement. I mean the classic rock band. I've got his name here in the notes somewhere. Command F Police. Yeah, here it is. Stuart Copeland is his name. Recorded In Trouble Again. And it definitely sounds like something that could have played on the radio in the mid 80s and is excellent. Absolutely excellent. So besides the theme songs, we're going to talk about this actual content here. This goes all the way back to 1978 in the Disney Plus Vintage Collection. This was released earlier this year, and they just added more to it. Last week, 2 weeks ago? What was initially released on the Disney Plus Vintage Collection, as Emma has here on the screen for us, of course, is the Boba Fett cartoon from the holiday special. They knew better than to put the whole holiday special on there, but they got the Boba Fett cartoon. What is it? 7 minutes long from the holiday special called The Faithful Wookiee. This is the earliest one from 1978, done by the same animation company that made the other shows. They ended up going back to 6-7 years later to make some spin-off series following Return of the Jedi. So we've got the Ewok movies, Caravan of Courage, released in 1984, Battle for Endor, released in 1985, the Ewok cartoon, simply called Ewoks. Brilliant title. 2 seasons ran from 1985 to 1986. And this is fun. It really puts it in its context for me. Once I knew this piece of trivia, it really unlocked my understanding of what the show is. It ran up against, on competing networks, up against the Muppet Babies and the Smurfs. So if you really want to
that explains some things.
Yep.
You want to have a Smurfing good time, just watch back-to-back Muppet Babies, Ewoks, and then the Smurfs, and then get back in your time machine. And what's up? Hey, you hang out with us in 2021. They also, of course,
the Smurfs won.
Oh man, you guys seen those new Smurfs movies with Neil Patrick Harris?
I have.
Underrated.
I've seen one of them.
Surprisingly,
they're pretty
no.
good. Yeah.
They're pretty good. You wouldn't think so, but they are. I watched them only on airplanes. Perfect airplane movies. Perfect. Just hanging out with Gargamel. Anyway, also released, most importantly, out of all of this, I would say, would be Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars series, which was technically 3 seasons, is now released in 2 volumes. I gotta love Star Wars with its weird numbering. 3 seasons, 2 volumes, which ran from 2003 to 2005. The golden age of prequel content, as far as I'm concerned. And then, like I said, just last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, the Droids cartoon was released on Disney Plus, which really goes to show that they could keep dropping stuff into this vintage collection, which is exciting. This was first released in 1985, right alongside the Ewoks cartoon. So, Charles, let's start with you. What's your history with this content? Have you watched any of it before the Disney Plus vintage collection?
Yeah, so my major connection to this entire collection is the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, because I was sitting there waiting for it to come on, like every new episode, the early ones that were just 3 to 4 minutes. So I watched that as they came out through my childhood, through those years, just waiting for episode 3. The other stuff, let's see, the story of the Faithful Wookiee, I watched the entire holiday special for the first time in college because my roommate at the time, Vincent, got his hands on a burned DVD copy of the holiday special. So that was my first encounter with that. But droids, Ewoks, the Ewok movies, all of that is very new to me. I watched it pretty much for this episode tonight, and I was happy about some of it and not so happy about other parts.
Yeah, that's such a generous way of putting it, Charles. Charles ever the diplomat. He just did that like super fast mace punch to diplomacy in the face there with his description. That's good. Yeah, I actually watched the Clone Wars series live as it was, not every episode because they were hard to time. They were so short that if you went to get a drink of Gatorade at the wrong time, you could tell I wasn't definitely playing a lot of
no pee breaks allowed when you're waiting on that show.
Yeah. Then you miss it. You'd be back and Anakin would be like, "Well, Obi-Wan, that was a good adventure we had there." And then it was over. How about you, Emma? You were too young to be watching the Clone Wars series that came out live on Cartoon Network. We were taking Gatorade breaks and pee breaks. You were just not born yet. So what's your history with this series, though? Of course, Trevor over there in Wales, which we learned, he's Welsh. Trevor over there is, laughing at all of us because we're too young to have watched the 80s shows as they were coming out live. But how about you, Emma?
Yeah, so I hadn't watched any of this except for the Faithful Wookiee cartoon because I watched the holiday special on YouTube, regrettably. So I did, technically watch that, but now I've seen all of it now that it's been on Disney Plus. So I think it's great that they're adding it to Disney Plus for people that weren't around during that time or are curious. It's definitely an interesting look into that time and that period of entertainment, I think. So
that's a good way of saying it. It is definitely like a trip in the time machine. It is a glimpse into the past of what Star Wars was struggling to be. And this really is couched in its history for the fact that George had young children at the time of, the release of Return of the Jedi and was trying to shift Star Wars into being more childlike. And you can see that, of course, coming to fruition in Jar Jar Binks, of course, in The Phantom Menace. I almost said the Trade Federation, excuse me. Those, 8-year-olds love them some trade disputes. The taxation of trade lanes. But no, he really did lean into this idea that Star Wars is for kids and went that direction. He wanted to create content that his kids could enjoy. I like to think that George was creating himself his own babysitters. Don't you think?
I love that. That's so neat.
Coming from someone with children, I feel like you've thought about this long and hard.
Yeah, that's right. We call Peppa Pig the new snooze button. That's right. Absolutely. I did, however, try to watch this with my kids, and they were like, "Nah, we're good."
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's very different than the cartoons that I watched as a kid and that are probably being released today. I don't know. It's a different style. It's a different amount of action, different topics, things like that. So I can kind of see why they weren't super into it, but maybe it was just because they knew it was old and they just they knew that they just maybe shouldn't even be interested in it.
Yeah. For me though, as a kid, all right, Charles, I don't guess this would apply to Emma. Charles, did you ever, growing up, go and rent VHSs from a physical location?
Man. Oh, at Hollywood Video, right around the corner from my house. It was a good Friday night when we would go have dinner and then go to the Hollywood Video. Pick out your VHS for the weekend.
Perfect. Yeah, my hometown Oklahoma had two rival video stores across the street from each other. I can't remember what Movie Gallery and Crossroads. I liked Crossroads better because they sold Pokemon cards, but Movie Gallery had more movies, which was kind of the point, right? But I remember renting this thing incessantly. The Ewoks movie, the first one, Caravan of Courage. I still have yet to see Battle for Endor. I tried to get it in before this episode. Didn't happen. Hasn't happened.
You've got to watch Battle for Endor. It was so much more enjoyable than Caravan of Courage. You got to do it.
Okay, so you liked it more. You liked it more than Caravan of Courage. That's cool. That's cool.
I did 100%.
I'm looking forward.
It was because of this guy, right? I'm pretending like you can see me pointing. But,
there he is. Yeah, totally.
On the far right there. What was his name?
Wilford Brimley.
Was that his name? The little creature on the right there? I don't remember, but he like runs super fast and he's like really
Teak.
funny.
That's Teak.
Teak, yeah, Teak. Yeah, he's really great in it. I enjoyed it quite a bit more.
So I've yet to see that, but I probably rented Caravan of Courage so many times that we could have just bought the dang thing. I mean, how many times did my parents let me rent that? Did you have like a go-to, we're gonna go rent the same movie, Charles, at the video store?
100%. So I have an older sister who she's 2.5 years older than me, and we would go and we could each pick out our own movie. She would pick something out new every time. I got the same Power Rangers movie every single time.
Freddie and I are
I
big
don't
Power
know.
Rangers
I enjoyed
fans.
it.
Oh my gosh. Was it the one where Zach beats up the putties through dancing? Because that's a good one.
It
Dancing.
sounds like a good one. As many times as I probably watched that VHS, I have no recollection of any of the events.
he has
I
his
think
own.
it was Morphin Time at one point, and you thought the
Definitely.
villain lost, and then he came back 10 times bigger. So-
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, if Freddie was here, he's big into martial arts. Yeah, the Black Ranger, he has his own form of martial arts called hip hop keto, which is hip hop dancing and martial arts. It's so great. Yeah, there's a whole episode about it. We would rent that at our VHS store. Emma, I would equate this probably to just being like having your Netflix comfort food, right? Like it's like you need to unwind. We're just gonna watch the same thing on Netflix that we watched yesterday. I mean, like that's relatable, right?
Oh, 100%. And
Okay.
for me, it's The Office, like the U.S. Office.
Sure.
Like,
Right.
I know that's like not really applicable here, but I kind of remember like, I wasn't, I'm not old enough to like have that same experience with like renting videos, but I was old enough for like the when Netflix sent you DVDs.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I don't even think we had a go-to movie. Like my dad controlled the queue, and it was always stuff that he wanted to see before anybody else. And like that's like the only struggle I remember with getting entertainment when I was younger.
That's great. Rambo again, Dad. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we've talked about our history with this, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on the Ewoks and Droids cartoons. We can get back to them in the trivia section, because honestly, they were kind of rough. But I do want to ask, did you have an opinion on which was better, Ewoks or Droids? Obviously, the execs, like the higher ups who were pulling the purse strings on this stuff, thought Ewoks was better because it got 2 seasons as opposed to the Droids 1. In fact, there was even 1 extra episode added to Droids. They canceled it prematurely, but then none other than Star Wars sound designer Ben Burt stepped in to try to save it. And so he wrote one last finale episode, which in true Star Wars fashion is a prequel. So the finale is a prequel to the rest of the series, which is so great.
Huh.
The Droids cartoon only got 13 episodes. The Ewoks cartoon got a full 2 seasons. Charles, we'll start with you. Out of your, dipping your toe in the waters with these, did you have a preference on the Ewoks or the Droids?
I did, and I think I might be contrary to maybe what most people think. I will be fully transparent. I only watched the pilot of both of these shows.
It's like a good litmus test.
I thought that Ewoks was better. I did. It was, I don't know, it was more interesting to me. The Wisties, that was all wild.
Yep.
Like the Wistie Queen.
Hated that for sure.
Well, but they're in
I don't know,
Battlefront
man.
now, so it's like super cool to see.
Oh, are they
Yes,
really?
exactly. So
Yeah.
there is a story behind that, because my buddies and I, we play Ewok Hunt sometimes like late at night. Like I'm talking 2 a.m. We decide to play Ewok Hunt, and you're running around in the darkness, and all of a sudden a Wisty pouch will bust next to you, and we all just scream Wisties while we're like running away from whoever. So yeah, but
amazing.
there was that moment where Wicket is just dancing with one of like the Wisty Queen in the forest, and I was like, this is why I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
This is the
I love
reason
that.
I'm watching this old cartoon.
The lore of this 1980s cartoon brought back to life in 2021. If they could have thought, you just be like the Paul Rudd meme. Look at us. Who would have thought this show would have had its own second life all these years later? That's so cool. All right, so you're gonna say Ewoks. I decently enjoyed Ewoks. There just wasn't any stellar voice acting, and then I hated everything that wasn't the main crew of Ewoks, which is like half the show. And I say hated it. It
You mean
it
like
adds-
not the main Ewoks, or what
yeah,
do you mean by
like
that?
the bad guys, the villains. What are they
Oh,
called?
like the
okay.
Dulocks.
The
They look
Dulocs.
like
There we
the
go.
Grinch.
Yes. Yeah. Could not really hang with them for, let's be honest.
Yeah, they did
But
have like kind of irritating voices for sure.
that's what it was. Yeah, yeah. I've also been studying hard for grad school this month. So like anytime I need my brain off, what I don't, and don't, have my kids screaming at me, I don't need some gnarly Ewoks screaming at me either. So what I need to do, and I've got a working hypothesis here, I want to watch Care Bears, Gummy Bears, and Ewoks back to back to back, inebriated, and then see which of them, if I would ever do that, theoretically, of course, and see which of them adds up. Because I used to like those two shows as a kid. Emma, do you even have a clue what I'm talking about?
Not really. I'm not gonna lie to you. It sounds like an I think I watched Care Bears when I was little, but that just sounds like a very interesting mix of shows that you've just rattled off there.
See, Emma, you don't quite understand. In the Ewoks pilot, when they played Drop the Sack, Jared and I played Drop the Sack as children.
Yep.
There was not enough entertainment out there yet.
Oh, goodness.
Drop the Sack was a real game.
Yeah. Before we say anything else about that, Emma, did you have a preference on Ewoks or droids?
Definitely droids. I think it was because, the villains in Ewoks were annoying. I agree with you, Jared. But also, I felt like the premise for each episode was kind of the same. Like, the Ewok kids all do something stupid to get themselves in trouble, and then, oh goodness, we gotta go fix it. Whereas droids was just kind of this like cluster of just wildness that I can't even quite pinpoint anything on. Really, it was a very weird experience to watch, and I feel like it had a little bit more variety. So I'm gonna go with droids.
I'm sorry, I'm dying at Corey's comment in the chat, which is, what the heck is Drop the Sack?
I just saw that. Well, Corey,
Oh my gosh.
let me explain it to you. It's a game that the Ewok children play where they sit up high in the trees and they drop sacks of mud on each other.
No, on Aunt Bozzy.
Oh, yes, on their aunt, yes.
Poor Aunt Bozzy got the works, man. Always.
She did.
Well, that was one of the annoying things about these shows was how much gratuitous violence there was. I know what you're saying, gratuitous violence. There was so many pratfalls. It was definitely a lot of like falling and hurting each other humor, which, I've got a 3-year-old. It's really not that funny, but like maybe they would think it's funny. So I actually, out of the two, preferred droids, mostly because I enjoyed listening to Anthony Daniels play C-3PO.
Yeah. Yep.
He actually was. I'm gonna have to mute the chat. I can't even look at this.
I can't either.
He actually, revived his role as C-3PO, and there's this indiscernible quality that he has in his vocal performance compared to. I mean, it's been 40 years since he first started playing C-3PO. There's something in his voice in the Droids cartoon that really just works, and it sounds so authentically original trilogy compared to some like recent performances. I mean, he's still doing great. He never ages. But this was a very authentically original trilogy. Anthony Daniels' performance, definitely loved that. My biggest gripe with droids was basically all the original characters. Anything that wasn't, originally in the original trilogy kind of, grated with me. But I will say all of the space battle sequences, anything happening with spaceships or speeders, were excellent. The sound design was great. The problem was like there were very, very few moments where they were like, having spaceship chases. But when they did, they were good.
My biggest problem with droids from the one episode I watched was not that C-3PO blinked. It was that he blinked with vertical eyelids. They weren't even just normal eyelids.
Wait, talk to me about his eyelids anatomically. What should droids' eyelids anatomically be from the perspective of a doctor?
Eyelids? Should they have eyelids?
Definitely not, just based on a creepiness factor.
Yes, they should just stare through you, like not even at you, but through you.
Somehow that's less creepy.
He doesn't have a top and bottom eyelid, is what I'm trying to say. He has a left and a right.
I had no idea.
I didn't notice that.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah,
Wow.
his facial expressions were terrifying. I can't decide if I want to say terrifying or horrifying, but definitely one of the two.
I mean, he had
it's one of
eyebrows,
those,
like pseudo eyebrows. Like what even was that?
it's one of those choices where they needed him to emote. But that's one of the the brilliant things about C-3PO is he can emote without eyelids, whether they're the right way or the wrong way. So yeah, definitely one of the biggest crimes in the Droids show was the C-3PO blinking. I think we can all agree on that. But kind of leads me to this question, which is like, regardless of the execution of these shows, I just wonder from a conceptual standpoint, were these the right choices for spin-off shows after the original trilogy? The mid 80s, you put yourself into the dark times of Star Wars content making after Return to the Jedi, before the landmark book Heir to the Empire, almost said Heir to the Jedi, Heir to the Empire in 1991. This is in that period where Star Wars has kind of fallen out of the public consciousness. What do you think would have been a good alternative besides droids or Ewoks? What would have been like the ideal cartoon, the animated series to make after Return of the Jedi in the mid 80s? You ever thought about this?
So just like my gut reaction right now is like, it would be really cool to have seen a cartoon about the Mon Calamari, like after Return of the Jedi. That's like my gut reaction.
Oh, we got some Mon Calamari stuff in the Clone Wars cartoon, that's for sure.
That's right, yeah.
I feel like it's like it's like Muppet Babies. I feel like it's a common thing. Just take the main character of something that you love and let's see them, as a child. So I feel like they could have done like a young Luke running around Tatooine with all of his good buddies. That could have been fun.
Oh, Star Wars Muppet
yeah.
Babies? That's not the
Yes.
worst idea I've ever heard. I mean, I did watch like a lot of Ewoks and droids this week, but so my bar has
Your
shifted
bar
low.
is pretty low.
Yeah, it's low. It's very low. Yeah, this is a good idea. I've always been clamoring for. We got this to a certain extent with Rebels, a like fighter pilots show, an animated fighter pilots show, kind of in the vein of Speed Racer. That's about like Rogue Squadron, but it would have needed to be set maybe between episodes 4 and 5, something in that era. So I still think that there is a lot of room for a show like that. Even today, I'd like to see them do this in the Speed Racer, like 1980s style today, of like a Rogue Squadron show, like an 8-episode, 13-episode limited series, kind of revisiting this 2D style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hopefully we get some creative art choices with Visions, which is coming out later this year. It's supposed to be anime, and hopefully we get some flat 2D art. I'd like to see that art style explored as well. Have you guys seen that TIE pilot, like that TIE fighter like YouTube video that circulated there a couple years back?
Yeah,
I
dude,
haven't.
that is incredible work. I really love that thing. And I also love like all of the like manga adaptations that they've put out. So like do that just in a show. I would eat that up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You could turn that, and hopefully we'll see what Visions is. But yeah, Emma, we'll have to send you a link after the show. We'll put it in the
Yeah.
Legends Look Back Discord channel. There was a fan made TIE fighter anime, just a video, maybe 5 minutes long, and they kept adding to it. Took them months, maybe a couple
awesome.
years, and it is just absolutely one of the best pieces of fan made Star Wars content ever. Really follows like the Gundam style of anime from the
Oh, yeah.
80s. Kind of reminiscent of that, like the late night 1 a.m. Adult Swim stuff that I used to watch in the 2000s. After you watched the 2000s Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series, we're going to get to in just a second. Before we do, one of the little tidbits I stumbled upon with the Ewok movies. Talking about the Ewok movies here for a second. One of the crazy tidbits I stumbled across today is there's actually some debate, some controversy surrounding where they fit on the timeline. Did you guys get any sense when watching them where they fit into Star Wars continuity?
I tried to use Wicket as like my base for trying to figure out like whether this took place before episode 6 or after, and I honestly couldn't figure it out. And I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
I've got some thoughts. Let's ask Charles first.
No, I mean, I'm going to be real with y'all. I made it about all of 10 to 15 minutes into Caravan of Courage, and
It's a slow roll.
I had to
It
turn
is.
it off. So I have no idea where it landed. Hopefully somewhere very far, far away from where I am.
Yeah, it's a slow roll. You gotta sit with it. You gotta make the commitment to I'm watching this, and nothing will stop me. I say that. It took me about 20 separate sittings to make it through. But just like that's just life with the kids. I'll blame it on my kids. Blame it on my kids. Get this. Originally, this was thought to be 150 years after the Battle of Endor.
No way.
150
Why?
years. It was, I don't have a great answer there, other than it was in a few different pieces of reference material. Then later is retconned to being much closer to the Battle of Endor. I need to double check. I think it's just shortly afterward. The
I was gonna
number
say,
one
that's very
thing,
interesting because Wicket is a child still, so then Ewoks would have to age pretty weirdly.
that's definitely one of the things I was thinking.
Yeah.
One of the other issues is the Ewoks don't have really any human contact in Return of the Jedi. You know, Wicket is super suspicious of Leia until she feeds him, what is it, like a granola bar?
Something like that. Yeah, like a
it's a
cracker, like a
Chewie.
saltine.
We had a big debate about what did she feed him in Slack a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
To try to find that one. Anyway, it was a big debate. I'm pretty sure I won. But the fact of the matter is, they did retcon this to being much closer. But I thought that was crazy that in a few different, we'll see if Trevor's got any of these, a few ancient 80s reference guides, 150 years. The only thing I can think of plot-wise that would age it would be, it seems like the Ewoks really don't have any contact with humans in Return of the Jedi. So it would have to be after it for some reason, right? Because these kids come along and they're like hanging out with the kids and, you know, getting along just fine, but then they're super suspicious of Leia and they're like worshiping C-3PO. It's a whole, they almost eat them. You know, that part's fun. So that's a little crazy tidbit there. Let me ask you this, Emma, since Charles, you know, didn't quite make it through. What do you think was the most redemptive part of the Ewok movies? Like the number one thing that made it watchable?
I think, and this might be a little weird, but I'm going to say whoever played Sindel, her acting was really good for being a kid. And I'm going to Google
Aubrey
her.
Miller.
Aubrey
Yeah.
Miller. Yes, thank you. Aubrey Miller's acting was very good. I thought it was going to be pretty bad based on some of like the early footage of the movie, but I was like really surprised at how well she acted with, you know, these people in masks. And I think she really sold me that she was on Endor
Yeah.
and like afraid and you know, sick in the beginning and stuff like that. So I think the acting on her part was very well done.
That is actually a really good perspective on that, to think about the fact that she is acting against like these teddy bears, right? Everybody else is in a costume, and she is a kid. I mean, she doesn't have like the best acting training, and she really does a stellar job, definitely for her age. Such a great job, in fact, that they killed off her brother for Volume 2 and just went with her. They're like, let's keep her,
That's true.
kill the kid, whose
Yeah.
name is Mace, by the way. Did we talk about that?
I don't think we've talked about that yet. No, here I've got a picture. This is Mace right here next to Wicket and Sindel. I mean, he's got his blaster, his tiny little blaster. It's like trying to be a rifle, but not really. And he's kind of wearing like this rebel pilot jumpsuit type of thing, or it's trying to be. I don't know. I was very confused about his style choices.
Yeah, he's ready to kill me for trying to watch this movie. No, I actually kind of liked his vest that he had in most of the movie.
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing about this is the visual style, the fact that you cannot go and recreate this style. It is so entrenched in the early to mid 80s. It's so tactile. All the special effects are not that special. You know, they're not computer generated. All the special effects are, you know, puppets and animatronics. It's very down to earth, very gritty. I love all the little gadgets they get. You know, they have this low grade gifts them with these random little trinkets that are gonna kind of like in Lord of the Rings, right? You each get your gift. You might get like a package of crackers that are gonna save the day, or a flashlight. You know, he gets like a fairy in a rock, and then he's like, "Oh, I got a rock." Anyway, it's great. It's great. I like the tactile nature of this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It definitely had its own like had its own flavor, you know. Like I think back, I'm pretty sure this was in Caravan of Courage and not Battle for Endor, but I could be wrong. There was a scene like in a cave with like spiders and stuff, and you could see like the clear like fishing line that they were using to like manipulate the spider, and I don't know, it was
Yeah.
it was a very cool style.
I'm gonna have to double check for that. That's hilarious. Oh my
Yeah, like it
gosh.
kind of looked like spider web, but you could tell it served a purpose.
I, being from Arkansas, also use fishing line for all sorts of things it's not intended for. So I appreciate that. Definitely. Let's talk about the thing that we brought Charles here for. We're going to talk about one of his very favorite pieces of Star Wars content, and that is the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars series. And my working hypothesis for this is if you really want to get the most out of the Clone Wars micro series, watch it after Droids and Ewoks, because it's awesome after Droids and Ewoks. I mean, first of all, we got like 18 years of development with animation and lessons learned about Star Wars along the way. But Charles, why do you have such an intense love for this series in the first place?
Oh man, I think part of it because I was watching it when it was coming out, and this was in the prequel era, right? This was the first look that we had at what was really the Clone Wars, because episode 2 came out. We saw the Geonosis arena and all the clones kind of descending there and fighting for the first time. And then nothing, right? Nothing until Revenge of the Sith, except for this cartoon. And so we really got to see what was going on. But the other part about it is for me, I think I have a lot of nostalgia for Tartakovsky in general, but like this kind of animation style, like this is straight up my childhood. Like think of one of your favorite cartoons as a child, and like that look to it, like that style to it, like it probably, it probably means something to you, holds some power over you. And this is exactly that, because Tartakovsky had a hand in some weird stuff, a lot of the Cartoon Network stuff, like Dexter's Laboratory, all those kind of odd shows that I still love to this day. So it's probably a whole mix of things.
Did he do Ed, Edd and Eddy, or was that like one of the only Cartoon Network shows he didn't do?
I don't know if he did Ed, Edd and Eddy, but it seems like something he would have done.
He did Dexter's Lab. That was okay.
He did Dexter's Lab. He did Samurai Jack. I mean, he did a lot of Cartoon Network stuff.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls.
Yep.
I remember the day we moved to Oklahoma and got our cable hooked up. We had Cartoon Network for the first time. I hadn't had it before that, and I just remember sitting in front of the TV and watching. What was the one with the cow and the chicken and IR Baboon?
Oh, what was that? I feel like it was called Cow and Chicken or something like that. It was
like,
not very creative.
My IQ dipping tremendously that day, but like having a good laugh and feeling like we were in for a wild ride. I love that George hired this very noteworthy animator who, for as stylized as the show is, and in some ways doesn't hold up as well compared to Filoni's version, because it has such an intense, extensive lore and so much involvement from George Lucas. What I love is that George allowed him to commit to his style as fully as Genndy ever was with any of these other shows. He brought that to Star Wars. I mean, the clone troopers have so much style in how they coordinate their attacks, and they're, doing their hand motions to, move around the corners. And whenever they get out of the troop transports, they all go, it's just so awesome. I appreciate that George kind of took a step back and let somebody else take the reins with Star Wars for a bit. Emma, what's your history with the Clone Wars cartoon? Did you say earlier?
Yeah, I watched it for the first time when it came out on Disney Plus, and it was really interesting to watch it from the perspective of someone who's seen like all 7 seasons of like the Clone Wars that we know now.
Okay.
Just sort of like comparing the two. It was like really, really cool to watch, and I was honestly sad when it ended, because I could watch like hours and hours of that old Clone Wars stuff.
Right?
Yeah,
it's so rewatchable, and I love the way that they have couched it in Disney Plus. It is just 2 episodes, right? It's just these 2 volumes. Right. You press play, and they're gonna go, and you don't have to decide in between episodes. Am I gonna keep watching this? Just let it do its thing.
It was like they were they were having more and more faith in the show is kind of how it seemed, because like, as you said earlier, Jared, it's actually 3 seasons is how it was produced. And volume 1 on Disney Plus is like seasons 1 and seasons 2. And then volume 2 is season 3. So this is very Legendsy, right? To be doing this number thing again.
Yeah. So
But
volume 1 is seasons 1 and 2.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the earliest episodes were like 3 to 4 minutes, I think, all except for maybe, I want to say the finale of season 2 was like 10 minutes for the first time. But then all of season 3, they're 13-minute episodes. So they were just giving Gendy more and more room to play.
Yeah, they did get longer, and they connected more, especially to the end of the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, season 3, volume 2. Connects so directly with Revenge of the Sith in a great way, which one of the things I loved about Legends. We've got a few books that really tether to that story. Labyrinth of Evil is a good one. And of course, Plagueis as well. Let me ask you this, Charles. What is your favorite episode? Out of, you can think the little segments, your favorite scene, favorite part. Obviously, we know you love the Mace Windu fight.
I do love that Mace Windu episode. I think there's my favorite episode, and then there is the best episode, and they're not the same. My favorite episode is from season 1, and it's the episode where Obi-Wan and Dirge fight, where they actually joust, right? Like with their respective squads. Yeah, and it's like, of course Jedi Knights are going to joust. Like that had never occurred to me. But then they fight hand to hand, and it all ends with that wonderful moment when you think Obi-Wan has won because he's cut Dirge into like 5 pieces. And then at the very end of the episode, it just shows Dirge's little bubblegum body pieces like coming back together. Like that
Dirge. I call them Jello Dirge. It's bubblegum Dirge. That's what it is.
I like Jello Dirt actually, but yeah, I mean, Dirge was such a cool character, and just that moment, that is my favorite episode. But the best episode, I think, hands down, is actually a couple episodes, but season 2, I think it's like a few different episodes, but specifically when Asajj and Anakin are fighting.
I just watched that one yesterday. Yeah.
Yes, that the one at the end of their fight, right, where Anakin kind of dips into the dark side a little bit. He's wielding one of Asajj's red lightsabers, and he just gives that like primal roar when he's striking Asajj down that pit, and you see the flashes of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Yoda behind him just looking like terrified. And the reason I say that's the best episode is because not only was it the animation incredible, right, with the rain like sizzling off of the lightsabers when it starts.
I love that. That kills me.
Incredible with the use of the red and the blue lighting on the characters, similar to The Force Awakens that came so many years later. But specifically because it was like it worked perfectly as one of those moments where Anakin was unsupervised, right? Sure. And he really let his true tendencies come out. Just like in Attack of the Clones when he slaughters the Tusken Raiders, right? When he's away from the Jedi Order.
The Raiders.
Yeah, that's when he has those moments. And I felt like if you went from watching the micro series to Revenge of the Sith, that's one of those moments you carry into watching that movie, understanding why he's so troubled.
Oh man, that's so great. I just watched that yesterday morning at breakfast before I went and took my final exam for grad school. I came into it just like supercharged. Yeah. What got me? Yeah, the rain on the lightsabers, and they start sizzling. And I'm like, why are we not doing more of that? You know,
yes.
It totally makes sense. Why is this not in anything else? And then the amazing thing, and I started laughing so hard. My wife was like, what is wrong with you? When the rain starts sizzling on their lightsabers and then the rain starts falling and they just stare at each other and Genndy just lets it sit. And it is the longest silence of just rainfall and them just staring at each other. And I'm sitting there just like, seriously, how long is this going to go on? What is happening?
There's only a few minutes.
And then
it's like right before a boxing match, you know, when they like stare at each other like that. Yeah. You got to like get ready, you know?
Yeah, perfect. And then finally Anakin just like straight up jumps onto the Masazi temple. It's like in one
Yes.
single leap.
Well,
It's one of the things
you bring up a good point because
Yeah.
Gendy is not afraid of silence, right? Because the troopers rarely talk, as you said, like they're doing their hand signals, but when they pull in the music, like you feel it too, because it's that same episode where they play some of the actual classic Star Wars soundtrack, and it works so well.
Yeah, and you guys did a good job talking about this on. You did a whole episode of The Living Force about this. If you want more information, if you want to hear more analysis of the Gindi series, we're not going to go in tremendously deeper detail from here, other than to say, that there is this Clone Wars publishing program in Legends that Trevor has talked about quite extensively on the Star Wars archives. We haven't done a ton with here, but before the Revenge of the Sith is ever released, in those years between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, Del Rey, Dark Horse, and of course Cartoon Network, right? They are chronicling the Clone Wars bit by bit, piece by piece, and so you get to learn about this conflict and live with the conflict weekly, monthly, as is going on, getting ready for the release of Revenge of the Sith in a period really before, at least, for me as a youngster, right? Charles and I are similar ages. Didn't have great internet access. When you did, it was like you really had to wait for it with a dial-up. And so any piece of content you could get was a tremendous gift from the Force. And so it really fits into that period. And I think its greatest contribution is its introduction of villains. Let's talk about some of the original villains in this. We've got, I would say, 2 that have really endured, and then 1 more who's making a comeback. This show introduces Asajj Ventress, General Grievous, and Dirge. Right, so we talked about Dirge. Dirge and his Jello bubblegum self, who can joust with Obi-Wan and put himself back together to fight another day. Slight spoilers for what is happening right now in the current Marvel comics. We'll only just spend 1 minute on this. You can skip ahead 1 minute if you want to. You've been warned. Dirge is back. Emma, how insane is it that Dirge is back?
It's insane. Like, man, so I already knew he was coming back because of the cover of Dr. Aphra, but just reading about him and also visually seeing him doing all the combat stuff again, it was insane to see him back in canon again. And it makes so much sense for him to be a thing in canon, right?
It does, but I will buy anything in Star Wars. I mean, like, I liked The Rise of Skywalker. For me, my suspension of disbelief is easy. It's like I'm watching Star Wars. It doesn't have to make sense. I'll go with it. I love Palpatine's return in Dark Empire. It works for me. I don't have any hang-ups whatsoever with this. Dirge coming back is a great bone to Legends. It's a great, call back to this Tartakovsky thing. It also makes sense that you would need more ridiculously powerful, crazy bounty hunters for an event called War of the Bounty Hunters. You can't just have Boba Fett, IG-88, and the 7 or 8 from The Empire Strikes Back. You really need to fill out that roster. I think Dirge does that in an interesting way. Charles, over under. Let's go ahead and place our bets here. Over under that Dirge gets torn apart and has to put himself back together. Let's put it at over under at 10. How many times in War of the Bounty Hunters do you think Dirge has to reassemble his dissected body?
I'm gonna say under 10. That's a lot. I would read a comic where he just keeps getting destroyed and putting himself back together over 10 times, but I don't know that the mass public would do that. So
okay, good point.
Less than.
Okay, Emma?
I agree, less than 10, and here's why. There are only 2 known major lightsaber wielders in this era, and it's pretty hard to chop someone up with a blaster.
Oh, all right. That's
well, here's another question. Will he eat anybody who will then explode out of his insides?
That's got to be how he goes out, right?
I hope so.
It's like
if
with
he has
Thrawn.
to go out, that has to be the way.
It's like with Thrawn, whatever they're going to do with his story in canon, who knows? He's out there, with Ezra. But it's going to be hard to beat how he died in Legends. And so I'd like to see some kind of a throwback. That is good. That is so excellent. I'd like to see him, blasted and then watching his bubblegum skin knit itself back together, like
Oh, that'd
over a
be cool,
series of
yeah.
panels. You could do one panel where it's just, a hole in his bubblegum flesh. The next panel, the tendons are kind of coming back together. Charles,
Yes.
explain how that works on a physiological level.
Yes, I cannot.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. Emma, we asked Charles his favorite episode. He answered with the two that I was going to answer with. The only other one I might have said is what's the Nautolin's name? Kit Fisto, when he goes and has his underwater duel. That one
Yes.
is awesome. I love that one. What about you, Emma? Is there any other episode we have not mentioned that you think should make the list of being in contention for the best episode of Gendy's Clone Wars?
Yeah, like the one where Anakin gets his tattoos was really interesting to me, mostly because it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, like we've never really seen anything like that in Star Wars, so I was like really intrigued by that, and I think visually it was stunning to see these like gross slugs going across his chest and like leaving tattoo marks. Like I think visually it was very interesting to see, though I don't think it's the best narratively by any stretch.
That's a good answer. Definitely a good answer. If you guys want more information on this, like I said, you should. Do you know what episode that was, Charles? Check out that episode of The Living Force. Started looking for it a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. It
about
would
the
be
Gendy
somewhere in the hundreds, I think, in the low hundreds.
Whew, goodness, you guys have done a lot of talking about Star Wars.
We like it. What can we say?
That's great. That's great. You guys did a good job in dissecting that, just like Dirge gets dissected from time to time. I would say out of all the different shows and movies that we have talked about tonight, my biggest recommendation on what is worth your time, second only to the Droids theme song, would be the Genndy Tartakovsky series. Is that everybody's recommendation? Do we even need to discuss this? Is it up for debate at all?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay, let me ask you this, though. This is kind of crazy that Disney did this, right? That they released all this stuff in this Disney Plus vintage collection. I love the way it was repackaged and re-released. It's kind of a way of saying this is a look back in the vault. They're clearly saying, like, this is not what we're making now, but here it is if you want it. What is one other thing you would like to see re-released in the Disney Plus vintage collection that is not there already? Just recently, we had droids added to the collection. If you're going to add something else to your collection, like General Grievous does with lightsabers, what is one more thing you could see them adding, or one more thing you would like them to add? Let's start with you, Emma.
Yeah, so Jared was talking earlier about Warwick Davis doing like filming his own sort of behind the scenes of Caravan of Courage. And honestly, I would love to see that, mostly because I'm very interested in how that movie was made at that time. It's a TV movie, so obviously it didn't have as high of a budget. I'm just so intrigued at like how some of these effects were done, what it was like on set. Like, was he best friends with Aubrey Miller? Like, I would love to know all of these things. So I think that would be really, really cool to see.
Yeah, they gave him, Warwick Davis, kind of like the poster child of Star Wars. They loved, would really cater to him. They gave him professional camera equipment to do this with. So like he actually had incredibly nice equipment. And so would love to get a chance to see that. There's so much went into this. In fact, there was a Kickstarter like 10 years ago where he was trying to raise the funds to find a way to release this thing.
Oh, wow.
And now, this would be a great platform for it. Got a great recommendation here from Jacob. He'd love to see the original theatrical cuts put on Disney Plus. I definitely agree. That was definitely something that could happen. Hopefully something that will happen. We'll see. Charles, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know of all that much that's out there still. This was my deep dive into Legends. So I guess I will say the Star Wars Detours cartoon that was made could definitely be added to this series. I don't know that it really fully jives with Disney, because it was, the same guys that made Family Guy, or at least Seth Green, who's part of that team.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably some rude humor in there, but
yeah,
maybe
it's a little irreverent, but I mean, As long as you stick that vintage collection logo, it's 10 years ago. Surely that's vintage by now. Could you call that vintage? Not as vintage as 1978. We shouldn't even talk about the Boba Fett cartoon, which is cool. The one thing we'll say about it, we'll get to in a second in the Easter eggs. Definitely agree there. I had a list of a few others. I'd love to see the documentaries that were made about the special editions. These were released as like bonus content on the VHSs. Come around here somewhere. It's too dark in here. On the VHSs of the special editions released in the late 90s, they put these documentaries of George just like leisurely saying, yeah, I decided to put another spaceship in the thing. And so I just want these documentaries about George's decision making on how the special editions became the special editions. I'd love to have those on Disney Plus. They're actually a lot of fun. Would love to see those. Let us know your recommendations. What are your picks? Would love to see those in the chat, in the comments, Legends Look Back Discord channel as well. Before we're going to cut this thing off. We are going to go quickly lightning round through some of the Easter eggs and the canon connectivity with the Disney Plus Vintage Collection from the Boba Fett cartoon all the way to the Clone Wars micro series. Some of the callbacks, obviously talked about the recanonization of Dirge, but here's a few others. Charles, start us off all the way back in The Faithful Wookiee, the Disney Plus clipped version of the Boba Fett cartoon from the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah, so The Faithful Wookiee, Boba Fett appears in it. This was his first canonical appearance, and he has his gun, which is an Ambin Phase Pulse Blaster that was then reintroduced in The Mandalorian. We see Din Djarin first use this against that ice creature, I think it was in the pilot.
Yeah, definitely. My favorite thing about that entire cartoon is how many times Boba Fett just straight up smacks his big purple dinosaur with it. Like it's not even just like a prod to, hey, let's go a little faster. Boba is just like smack and nails this thing. And I was like, ooh, man, that was a little violent. Emma, you're up next. Tell us what else is a callback in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, so this was really cool. Also in The Mandalorian, the Blurgs, which first appeared in Battle for Endor, were recanonized in The Mandalorian as the chosen steed of Kuiil the Ugnaught. And I believe was also in the Clone Wars on Ryloth, I think. Could be wrong.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was recanonized there. What I appreciate about the way they did it in The Mandalorian is it looks a lot like the way they did it.
Yes, a little stop motion-y. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Another fun little callback cameo are the cameos in Droids by both Max Rebo and his musician sidekick, the coolest name in all of Star Wars, Droopy McCool, and of course even IG-88. Unfortunately, they were both featured way less than I hoped that they would be. Charles, take us away with the next one.
Yes. So another little Easter egg from Droids here. There is a 4-armed diner owner, but this one unfortunately does not know anything about Kamino and Saber Darts. He's not our good buddy Dex, but still cool.
Definitely the writing is on the wall there for where Dex is going. I love that George was like, you know what I really liked? That 4-armed diner guy. He can flip so many burgers. And he brings them back.
He was so efficient.
But much more like a toad, which is cool. Emma.
Yeah, so also in Droids, and something that Star Wars Archives talked about a few episodes ago, there's a pirate villain named Kybo Ren. And no, I did not just say Kylo Ren, I said Kybo Ren. And if he offers your hand again, you'll definitely take it.
Yeah. That's right. Except for maybe not, because I imagine his hand is like sweaty.
Yeah, I know. He's kind of he's kind of gross looking. Yeah.
He's got the very thin mustache.
Yeah.
I would never shake a hand of a man with that thin of a mustache. You know who else's hand I wouldn't shake? A Gorax. Goraxes, which were in the major boss villain at the end of Caravan of Courage, the monsters that haunt the Ewoks there on Endor. They were recanonized in Forces of Destiny, those little YouTube shorts from a couple of years ago. They were also referenced in a number of other canon reference materials throughout the last few years, including the lair of the Goraxes on Battlefront. You know who else was referenced in Forces of Destiny is Princess Nisa from the Ewoks cartoon. So love that they really just went all for it with the Ewoks stuff in Forces of Destiny. I'm about to rewatch those. It's been a while. And finally, Charles added one last thing. Did you know that Sindel from the Ewok movies is referenced in one and only one? No, a couple of Legends books. The very first one she is referenced in is Tyrant's Test. Did you know that Sindel from the Ewok movie was ever referenced again in Legends?
I had no idea. This is pretty shocking to me from what little I watched of the Ewok movies that we would want to bring things back. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, so she became a reporter on Coruscant later in the Tyrant's Test, the novel, and then in Legacy of the Force, she's referenced again. So if going by that continuity, definitely is set not 150 years after Return of the Jedi. So maybe just a few years after, could be a little bit before. I've seen some conflicting reports as I've been doing some on-the-fly research here. But pretty cool that she at least gets a little call back there. Before we close out the show, we're going to do a little game. Now, we were having a debate here. Charles said, you mean one of Eric's stupid games? And I said, no. Eric can fight me. I started doing stupid games on this podcast before he ever trademarked them as Eric's stupid games. So this is a good old-fashioned Jared's stupid game. But Eric, hey, I would love to have you come and play some stupid games anytime you want on Legends Look Back. All right. So for the two of you, I only got 2 questions written because these are actually fairly difficult to write. But we're also running out of time here. I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to read 4 plot descriptions of what could be an episode of Droids. And I want you to tell me which of these is not an episode of Droids. Okay? Charles, we're going to start.
There's 3 truths and 1 lie then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Charles, I'm going to start with you because Emma, she watched more than you did. All right. Yeah. So you're going to make a fool of yourself first. Ready? Which of these is not an episode of Droids? Number 1, R2-D2 and C-3PO and their companions crash land on a water world and have to tame an OPC killer. Number 2, the droids and their friend befriend an android who happens to be a local brainwashed chieftain. Number 3, after being jettisoned over a desert planet, C-3PO and R2 are taken in a land speeder by a couple of locals. They accidentally discover the location of a secret weapon. That's all I'll say about that one. And finally, the 4th option is the droid's friend plans to follow the rainbow comets to find a safe path through the cloak of the Sith to the planet Rune. And this will allow them to trade for rune stones. And ultimately, R2 saves the day by pretending to blow a circuit. Which of those sounds the least like?
First of all, I feel like I've not watched
of Droids.
any of the episodes. Even though I watched all of them, I feel like I don't remember any of it.
All right, Emma, I found myself kind of going to this zen flow with these episodes where you turn them on, you just kind of zone out.
Yeah, for sure. All of it sounds fake. All of it sounds fake.
It does all sound fake. That last one was so detailed. It has to be true. So I'm taking that one out. I'm going to say the first one wasn't weird enough to be real. I'm going to say the crash landing on a water world and taming an OPC killer is not an episode of Droids.
Emma?
It's the first one.
Oh, okay. It wasn't good enough. Yeah, I needed more time. Yeah. It's not. But I appreciate that you thought that they all sounded fake. That was kind of the goal.
No, all right, they all did, for real.
The other question is this. I'm going to give you titles of names of the Ewok shows. So these are episode titles. One of them, once again, is not an actual episode title. Ready? Emma, you go first this time.
Okay.
Baby Ewok's Picnic Surprise. Number 2, Race to the Great Tree. Number 3, Wicket's Wagon. And number 4, Blue Harvest.
I'm going to say number 2.
Number 2, Race to the Great Tree. Charles.
I guess I'm going to say Blue Harvest, right? Because that has other Star Wars connotations.
It does. Okay, Emma was right again. Once again, she did watch them, but or most of them. Yeah. So, Race to the Great Tree. I made that up. I almost just put Race to Crash Point Tower to see if you guys would notice. It kind of works though. Those trees. Yeah, there's actually an episode called Blue Harvest. I watched it.
Interesting.
Was not cool, unfortunately.
I don't even know why they called it Blue Harvest, even at the end. Like, I was like, what?
Yeah. I don't either. There was a blue villain, or like a villain who wore a blue onesie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
like the Ithorian in the Kinner toy. He has a blue onesie. Like a spandex, not a jumpsuit, but like the one that Richard Simmons would exercise in. What are those called?
A leotard?
Like a pantsuit.
Yeah, that's good. There you go.
Or something.
Leotard,
I
not a
don't know.
pantsuit. He's
No,
not
not a
Hillary
pantsuit.
Clinton. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Charles, thank you for filling in this week for Freddie. Freddie, you've been missed. Can't wait to hear about which of these California adventures you would want to take. As we're just going to totally redo that intro all over again to ask if you've ever been to any of these places. Remember, everybody, no show next week. We will not have an episode live of Legends Look Back next Thursday night because, well, I'm out of town. And Freddie doesn't want to host without me. I mean, come on. All right. And after that, we also are prepping, however, for our next roundtable. Emma, tell us what the next roundtable is going to be.
Yes, the next roundtable is going to be Shatterpoint by Matthew Stover, which you can get in the new Legends Essential collection. Did I get that right?
You got this, Emma. It's
I
so
keep wanting to say Epic Collection like the comics. It's the Legends Essential Collection version, or the new audiobook, right? It just came out with an audiobook.
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways to do this. And I'm really excited because I have like that new book format. It's nice and big. And we talked about this last show. I just love that size.
I finished it today and discovered there's bonus content. There's a short story at the end, even in the audiobook. They've recorded the short story in the audio version, which is super cool. And I had no idea. Charles, I mean, I know you're a pretty big Mace Windu fan. Have you ever read Shatterpoint?
I've never read Shatterpoint, and I just want to clarify something. I'm not a big Mace Windu fan. I just think he's alive. I just think he's out there, and I just hate him the least of those of us on the Living Force.
Hey, works for me. Well, that does it for this week. Thanks for joining us on Legends Look Back. Thanks to our incredible patrons for your support. We love making this show, in case you can't tell, and we are glad you are along for the ride. Special thank you to Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and our Jedi High Council, Elizabeth Cloutier. Sound like the DJ from The Last Jedi, right? Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Missile, Sally and Chris Eilerson, and of course, Freddie C on our Alliance High Command. I've never messed up those names before like that. What's your thoughts around the show? Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Email us, please, at legendslookback@utini.com. You can send us a message in the Legends Look Back Discord channel. You can leave us a comment on this episode on YouTube. Note to self, read the comments before next week, as long as they're nice. Or, of course, you can find us in Twitter. I'm at Jared Q. Mace. Freddie is at Wake Up Freddie. Emma?
At Urban Jedi 26.
Charles?
At C. Hankel.
And the show is at Legends Look Back. What a great handle. So perfect. Glad we didn't have to pay $1,000 to steal that from a space pirate named Kybo Ren or anything. Well, hey, if you're looking to buy some of the books that we often talk about, really didn't talk about the books today. If you want to help support the show, you can look up a book on Utini. You could click the Amazon link in the profile, or of course, you could read something and then let us know what you think and leave us a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, everybody, until next time, keep the Utini fan code and be a force for positivity in the fandom. May the force be with you.